Well, some people are hearing bad things about the economy. Hi, I'm Christine Rothdeutsch.
And I'm Barbara Menino.
And on this episode of Soapbox Wisdom, you guessed it, we're talking economy. Well, I mean, we're not economy experts by any means, but as a business owner, the perspective of what do you do when things start to go awry. But first, I want to remind you, as our listener, to like and share this episode of Soapbox Wisdom. Share the wisdom with your community. So, Barbara, again, this topic came up from one of our sessions of just sitting around and chatting. And you had made the comment to me that I'm hearing people say that the economy is bad, that business is going to get bad, and all this Debbie Downer stuff. Just saying, you were a real Debbie Downer there.
Didn't say I bought into it.
Well, this is true because as you were saying that, I'm thinking, really? Like, is it any different than any other time? I wasn't quite sure. So, just lightly, now I don't want you to reveal your sources. Um, but what got you going on this thought? And in asking me what I thought, am I worried? No, of course, I'm not. What got you started on this thought?
So I had been to several meetings this week, and I'd heard reference to the fact that the economy is still unstable. Inflation is high, it's unpredictable. Nobody knows exactly where it's going. And I had seen a few articles. I even double checked to see if what these people were saying really was true or whether it was exaggeration. And it is true. There are no silver bullets that say it's going to be perfect. And this does affect small business people. As a matter of fact, I read a study that said over 50% of small business people feel negative, which to me means pessimistic about the economy. So it's out there as a topic. And the question does become, what do you do? Do you get scared, stay scared, or do you take charge and get going?
Well, yeah, and I mean, and that was a great thought. Do you get scared or do you get going? And this harkens back to just when COVID was hitting.
Totally.
What do we do? We can't go out. How do we do business? Um, and I, well, me being me, I'm always looking for how I can do something different. Maybe just in how I operate or and in all truth too. Okay, so I am a solopreneur working out of my own home. I don't have a lot of overhead. So yes, I can speak this way. And I know there's a lot of business owners that might be listening to this that are saying, well, but I have a brick and mortar and I've got all this overhead and this, that. So
Inventory too.
and inventory. Yeah, I am by no means speaking on authority in that area. However, I do believe that when you can be more creative, be creative. I shouldn't say more creative. Be creative in your thinking. I know numerous business coaches that help to create plans so that when things happen, you can, and I'm going to say the word pivot, to something different, to something better, instead of staying just in one direction. But it's so easy, I think, for people just they hear those words and people, just want to instill doom and gloom in you. And if you feed into it, yeah, you can go down that rabbit hole. Absolutely. But so, Barbara, you are another solopreneur like myself with a roof over your head and not a lot of overhead, So what are your thoughts on when we hear these things?
Well, again, I do feel it's normal to get the jitters, but once again, it is about mindset, about a mindset about being resilient, wanting to take control, and even asking yourself, is this an opportunity? I do believe when life gives you lemons, you got to make lemonade. And times when they're tough can be times of growth. That means for you personally and for you and your business.
Mhm.
I think COVID showed us that. You just mentioned the word differently and the word pivot. I mean, essentially, if you ask yourself, how can I do things differently? If you broaden your vision, if you mention coaches, if you expose yourself to new productive ideas, you have an opportunity to do something different that certainly can keep your business sustainable. It may even make you thrive. And I've heard many stories where people thrived during COVID because of their willingness to do things differently and be open.
Yeah, yeah, I guess it matters what your industry is also. There are going to be some areas that are non-essential, and I don't even really wanna go there. It's just, as people, start to tighten the purse strings, it's like, "Well, where am I gonna spend my money?" Well, is it in an area that's not really essential to running a business? Both you and I, we are business to business, working with the business owner, and maybe for both, I don't know, that some people would view us as like non-essential. I'm not going to work with you. I mean, like for me, being more productive, well, that might help you stay, in the black instead of the red, if you can work more productively, if you can tighten things up a bit, have some systems in your business that reduce waste, and whatnot. So these are some of the things, but yeah, I mean, depends on what industry you're in too, and if you can make a change. And sometimes I guess it can be tough, depending on what it is, where you're earning your money.
So I thought that was interesting, the point you just made about non essential for our businesses. And you also mentioned the word processes. And your strategic and part of your strategies are the right process at the right time. You're very process oriented. So, what if during a challenging time you helped a potential client get more organized in their thinking, um, streamline things so that
Mhm,
they could work more efficiently and effectively, maybe even reduce their expenditures because they were doing that? Or
mhm,
in my case, as the creative who's involved with content and storytelling and such, how about if I could help somebody come up with the right communications or content strategy that they express their greatness more effectively? So even in difficult times, other businesses or consumers, if you're B2C, would take would take notice. Uh,
mhm.
your use of the word essential and non essential, I'm almost going to react to that by saying it depends.
Mhm,
Sometimes the services that seem non essential actually pay dividends in the long run.
mhm. Yeah, and that's where you need another perspective on your,
Totally.
and we've talked about this on other episodes of
Yeah.
Soapbox Wisdom about getting the necessary help. But I think before somebody panics, and thinks, "Oh, the economy's bad, my financials are bad, oh, I might go out of business," get some help, to take another view of your business. And there's things out there that you can get for free also. There's lots of opportunity. I'm not saying, oh, you have to go spend money to get that help, but even if it's just getting a couple of business owners that together, like a mastermind type situation, to take a look at what you have, and then you take a look at what they have and say, "Oh, how could we shift things here?" And that's where collaboration comes in. You never know what some other business would have to offer you that you could collaborate, and collaboration can happen in any business. It's not just the small solopreneur business, and yes, it can happen in brick and mortar and in anything, but there's where creativity comes in too. Having a creative mind, and I have to say, I used to think that, well, I didn't think that I wasn't creative, but I was so concrete. This is how you do things. But in the last few years, I realized that no, I am creative, and I can think of different ways of doing things, and, "Ooh, how about let's try that?" So, you never know, and again, I want the listeners to think about this too. If you're saying, "But I'm not creative," I'm thinking you might be, you know?
Well, creativity shows in many different ways. I'm also a great believer that there's a fine line, if any line at all, between life and business. So, to that point, if you are a business owner and you're sitting home and saying, "But I'm not creative, I can't come up with another vision," sit back and think about a time in your life when you faced a challenge and examine or reflect upon how you conquered that challenge. And I would be willing to say that you probably did use creativity or showed other characteristics and assets, showed your mettle and solved that problem. And when you start realizing those that those characters reside within you, that's empowering, and that fuels your ability to then look at your business, carry over some of those traits, and figure out solutions where times are very tough, a little tough, somewhat challenging.
Mhm.
I know someone who is in the printing industry, and as you can imagine, during COVID, it got pretty dry. Um, he did a lot of printing for big businesses who held events, conferences, etc., shirts, and all of that. And um, this individual told me that his shop was in a strip mall with lots of parking spaces. And he would come to work every day, and there were only 4 cars in the lot, and 2 of them were his and his partner's. He said it was scary, it was depressing. We even got worried about the people in the other businesses. But lo and behold, the landlord contacted him and said, "Have you ever considered, or could you somehow make masks through a 3D printer?" And his first response was kind of, I don't know. But when he went home that night, he thought a little bit on it, and he started doing research, and he realized that through collaboration with others in his industry, he could make use of 3D printing to create some PPE. Uh, and lo and behold, not only did their business survive during COVID, but they had really strong sales. It was a relatively new business, and it was one of the highest years of sales they had. Their um, profit went up almost 30%. He laughed because he said people that know him says he loves to live in chaos. He thought about it, and maybe that was true, but that again speaks to what are the characteristics that make you shine in life. Well, he loved chaos, he's good in chaos, and that helped him survive in his business.
Mm.
So there are a lot of lessons to be learned, and that can make the outcome promising when times seem like they might be tough.
Yeah, that's a great example of somebody having an idea and sharing it with the right person. And there too, if you have ideas, but you can't figure out how to make it happen, share it with people. Find somebody that can make it happen. Um, you never know. But it's not going to help to get all worried and go down that rabbit hole of sorry. You're going to lose time. You're going to lose time and brain cells of worry. Worry gets you nowhere. Um,
I
so
knew
that.
a coach who said, "What you resist persists." And
Hmm.
that would be a case where, right, you would get stuck in
Hmm.
the weeds of worry and fright, and you'd say, "Oh my goodness," and you're fighting, right? And oh my goodness, what's going to happen? And a friend of mine actually is part of a business that's in the industrial supply industry, and they had a lot of corporate clients, and they too were hit because businesses were slowing down and employees weren't at work. And since they sold a lot of sanitation stuff, it came to them that they should tap into the assisted living and nursing home market. And that helped sustain their business. Now, their sales didn't skyrocket like the other person's. However, it kept them going, and it made it offset some of those areas that were in deficit. And even though they've gone back to a more normal sales marketplace, they have retained the senior market. So they opened up a whole new avenue, and that has helped their business continue to grow now. So, again, the vision you talked about, a vision, creative vision, the idea, hey, we can do this, let's try it.
Hmm.
And it works and helps.
Yeah. But it and everything we've talked about here revolves around not withdrawing. It revolves around getting out there and talking to people and figuring this out. And yes, sometimes you're going to have to spend money to get where you need to go. But if you do due diligence and really evaluate where that money is going, what's going to be the end result, and this is the path to go down, it would be money well spent. But yeah, you've got to stay out there and talking to people and not withdrawing. So that's my take on the whole thing.
I feel that we've kind of summed it up, and I think it's fair to say that both of us want to repeat that: forgive yourself if your first reaction is the jitters,
Hmm.
um, but step out of the jitters and really do get going, look for other opportunities, come up with new ideas, and be bold and courageous enough to pursue them. So the message would be, Christine, I think you'd agree with this: get going, and also be sure to tune in for our next episode of Soapbox Wisdom.
Soapbox Wisdom is hosted by brand messaging and storytelling consultant Barbara Menino and business and mindset coach Christine Rothdeutsch. You can find them online at barbaramenino.com and Christine Rothdeutsch.